Thank you. I'm sorry we've lost a few along the way, but we're going to go ahead with this portion, and maybe some others will come back into the room and join us. I am Phyllis Erney, and I am a part of the Alachua County African American Task Force. And in absence of our first speaker that was going to join us today, would have been Phyllis Marty, and I can't believe we would have had two Phyllises in the room at the same time. Her report, though, that she was ill, and she just let us know that very late in this, and we're sorry that she can't join us today because it would be very informative to hear from her CareerSource Economic Development, North Central Florida. But her report will be a part of this symposium, which I'll speak to a few minutes later. I'm going to take this opportunity, though, if I may, and since we're talking about the future, I'm going to tell you that my role in this, I've come from being in Alachua County for 50 years, but I grew up in Indiana, and my husband and I have been here for 50 years. I've been a part of the Alachua County school system for 32 of those years, and I wanted to tell you that Dr. Gordon and Dr. McDade Gordon and I and Agnes for a couple of years, I want to say, over time, we met with Dr. John Rahm, who is he is the head of social studies at the Alachua County Public Schools. And we met with him many times working on reviewing, planning, helping look at African American history as it's being taught in Alachua County. And I don't know how many of you would know that, it's been in the state of Florida that, of course, there's supposed to be African American history taught, and, that's there in the statutes. But Alachua County became one of the first and one of the few counties that established teaching. We became an exemplary status school system for our approach to teaching African American history studies in this county. And that meaning that it is not just a Black History Month, it is K through 12. The attempt here is that it is K through 12. It's integrated and along the way in different in the different studies from math to science, other art, and so that has been the work that has been going on here locally for quite a while now. And so we just wanted to note that to you, given that this was all, this was pre-DeSantis, I would say. So it's a challenge. It is an ongoing challenge to continue that work. The high schools, all 5 of our high schools do offer African American history and African history. Those are opportunities for students across our district. So I wanted to note that to you. The other thing I'm going to take a moment, I'm sorry, but I'm a proud grandmother, and I have to say to you that when I think of going forward, I have a biracial granddaughter who grew up here in Alachua County, K through 12 at PK. And I don't know how many of you would know. I wouldn't know this except that I am her. I learned, of course, by being her grandmother for all these years. She is 27. But the NAACP and the Legal Defense Fund in 2021 established a scholarship opportunity for only 10 students across the United States to have an opportunity to go into civil rights law and full scholarship to go to law school. My granddaughter is one of those in that inaugural class. She is one of 10, and she graduated from Yale Law School last May, and she is now in her practice. She is beginning a 2-year fellowship. She is in Durham, North Carolina, and the pledge that she needed to make in order to receive this an amazing amount of money, you can know it is, to go to law school. She needs to give 8 years. She needs to practice civil rights, Black, African American civil rights issues in one of the 14 states in the South. So she's just started, and it couldn't seem to come at I mean, civil rights goes on, doesn't it? And the need. So I just had to share. Thank you for giving me that moment. But I'm hopeful. And now, please let me introduce to you, we have our 2 guest speakers today. We are first going to hear from Mr. Carl Smart, Deputy County Manager of Alachua County. He attended UF in Santa Fe. He went to Texas, and he worked in Director of Code and Compliance, I believe in Austin and Fort Worth. Am I correct? Yes. And then in coming back to us, and he got his master's in interdisciplinary studies at University of Texas, Arlington. He came back. He is served 8 years now, 5 as assistant county manager, and now the last 3 as county manager for our here in Alachua County. And then I will move on and tell you about Mr. Stanley Richardson, who is our inaugural Poet Laureate of Alachua County. He is considered a poet, an actor, a playwright, and a producer. He's founder of ArtSpeak, GNV, North Central Florida Youth Poet Laureate Program. He's the author of a 2017 award-winning book of poetry, Hip Hop is Dead, Long Live Hip Hop, The Birth, Death, and Resurrection of Hip Hop. Activism, right? Those will be our 2 speakers, and I will start with Mr. Carl Smart. Thank you. I forgot you are pastor of Mount Zion AME in Hawthorne.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Erney, and thank you very much. And thank you to Dr. Gordon and Mrs. Dr. Gordon. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you today. I recently retired as Deputy County Manager for Alachua County, and I used to wonder why some people would retire and then before long go back to work. I was off for 1 whole month before going back, and I'm back part-time right now, serving as an executive liaison with the county manager, working on a couple of special projects. One of my special projects is gun violence prevention. So if you got some ideas on gun violence prevention, I need to hear them. That's a tough assignment. And then the other assignment is truth and reconciliation. So I'm here today to talk a little bit about truth and reconciliation and what the county has going on as it relates to that. As many of you know, we formed this organization called the Alachua County Community Remembrance Project, and I see some of our members are here. I saw Melanie Barr. I saw a couple of other members of the Alachua County Community Remembrance Project. So I'm just glad to see you here. Dr. Gordon has been to our meetings. It is a coalition, if you will, of representatives of communities throughout the county. I heard that brought up earlier. What about the other outlying cities? They're really not outlying, but what about Alachua? What about Newberry, High Springs, Micanopy, Hawthorne, Waldo, Rochelle, Monteoka, Gordon, Lacrosse? What about those areas? They're all a part of Alachua County, along with the metropolitan area here, the city of Gainesville. And so we have representatives from each of those areas and form subcommittees in each of those areas to talk about truth and reconciliation. Our focus thus far, though, I'm getting away from my notes, but our focus thus far has mainly been on the truth and researching, particularly that area, that post-Reconstruction period, 1877 to 1950, after Reconstruction, and what happened to a lot of the African-American families here in Alachua County, as well as throughout the state and throughout the South. You heard earlier from Ms. Karen Kirkman, and she's been integral in doing some of the research that is needed for us to do that job. One of the things we found out quickly is that we needed to partner up with the organization that's already working on that in this area, and that organization is the Equal Justice Initiative out of Montgomery, Alabama. And so we partner with EJI, and I was asked, not my normal role as deputy county manager, but I was asked to serve as the liaison between the county and EJI, we call them, Equal Justice Initiative, and our Alachua County Community Remembrance Project. So serving as a liaison, I got a chance to be in fairly good contact and communication with EJI, as well as working with the group. Some of the members of the group was actually able to go to Montgomery and see the legacy sites there in Montgomery, and were certainly impacted by it. I happened to be in Montgomery for graduation of a nephew, and so I've got to go to EJI while I'm out here. And so I went also, and it is certainly impactful, and I would recommend it. If you haven't been to Montgomery to see EJI, then I certainly recommend that. Alachua County is represented as part of the memorial for lynching victims during that period of time. Unfortunately, we've discovered that we had around 48 African Americans who were lynched here in Alachua County during that period of time. So the group went about how do we recognize, how do we acknowledge what happened? And how do we recognize those folk who were executed, if you will, without judicial, the advantage of a judicial trial? We call it extrajudicial. And when I first saw that word, it's a legal term, and when I first saw it, I think, well, that means they're going over and beyond normal judicial proceedings. No, that means there were no judicial proceedings. In a lot of cases, mobs broke into the jail, removed the inmate, the victim, took them out and lynched them or executed them in some kind of way. And we found out, working with EJI, the term lynching is not limited to hanging. It could be by firearm, by gunshot. It could be by stabbing. It could be by just beating a person, to death. And it's pretty horrific. And I hate to be using these terms. I hope you're okay. Sometimes they really stir up emotions for any and all of us, just talking about, thinking about, and remembering what happened to some of the people during that period of time. But I'm sure as as you've heard about the historical perspectives today, you know a lot about these things. And a couple of other things that happened. One is that there was a dynamic historian in this area who went about doing a lot of research, particularly on the killing of the Newberry Six back in 1916. You may have heard about them, about that situation. Dr. Patricia Hilliard-Nunn, an amazing lady. I was so glad that I got back to Gainesville in time to meet with her and to be able to serve on the committee with her before she passed away. Her research was highlighted in the Gainesville Sun. You might remember that. They did a big stories on her research and the Newberry Six and what happened during that time. That was kind of a catalyst. We started to feel like, okay, we need to do more research in this area. And Alachua County Commission also held public hearings on the status of Old Joe. And you remember Old Joe. He was a Confederate statue that stood on the west lawn of the county administration building for over 100 years. A statue of he was just a Confederate soldier. He didn't really have a particular name or rank, anything like that, but he was just a symbol, if you will, of the Old South. And he stood there in a statue of intimidation, if you will, for all those years. The county commission had public hearings, and people came up pro and against, both sides. And there were more people. I happened to be, as an assistant, somehow I was asked to serve on the county manager's place on the dais. And so I was on the dais watching people come up and give their opinions and their comments. There were more people against removing Old Joe than they were for removal of Old Joe. But in the end, of course, the county commission decided Old Joe had to go. And so they returned Old Joe to the Confederacy, the women of the Confederacy. They were the ones that donated it to the county way back, and so we gave it back to them. And so Old Joe has a new residence now. I understand he's out in the country there somewhere on a nice little plot of land where he can be comfortable out there, and so that's good.
I just want to know some of the reasons people were against moving it.
Their history. That was the primary reason. Their history, and they wanted to. Yeah, right. Absolutely. So, and you can acknowledge that point. Yes, it is true history, but it's not good history that you want to continue to honor. You don't want to honor it. So much. You certainly want to remember it, and so, but it was determined that Old Joe. It was not Alachua County now. It was not Alachua County going into the future. It was past, and it was not a happy past, and it brought back painful memories for a good portion of the population here in this county. So the county commission I think they made the right decision. And I was there to see Old Joe come down. And now, in its place, if you haven't seen, there's a memorial that memorializes Dr. Patricia Hilliard-Nunn and a statue, a replica, if you will, of the Sankofa bird. The Sankofa bird, of course, is a bird that symbolizes looking back at your history, but still moving forward. Looking back for a moment at history, but still looking forward. And so we think that's a much better representation of our county at this time. The Community Remembrance Project, and we call it ACCRP, Alachua County Community Remembrance Project. ACCRP went about the business of doing several things. One, neighborhood forums. We had a full capacity memorial service at Mount Pleasant United Methodist Church for all of the victims, and candle lighting and musical and spoken word, those kinds of things at that memorial service. Since that time, we've had neighborhood forums, we had soil collection events and displays. There's a wonderful display of soil that was collected from different sites around the county. These sites are primarily sites of the lynching where it occurred. Like for Newberry example, the lynching there, we found the tree and was able to get soil from right underneath the tree and have a ceremony right there underneath that tree. Some sites we weren't able to find. Where did it happen? And so we use a symbolic site. And so Alachua County, the administration building is a symbolic site. The MLK Center on the east side is a symbolic site. And so but if you see there's a display of those soil that's been collected in the lobby of the county administration building. And it's very similar to the way the soil is displayed at EJI, Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery. So if you get a chance, just kind of walk over to the administration building and check that out. Additionally, we've been doing historical markers. We remember one of the first historical markers for the lynching victims was for the Newberry Six, and it was a state marker that was put at the Pleasant Plain. Is it Pleasant Plain? United Methodist Church in Jonesville. And so we've been doing that with EJI sponsoring historical markers in different parts of the county. There's two here in Gainesville, one at the Alachua County Administration Building, another one at the MLK Center on the east side of town. And then there's one in Alachua, there's one Manioka, Gordon, Lake Cross, absolutely, yeah, in that area. And so we'll be doing others too. We're going to get to Micanopy, Ms. Barr, and we're going to get to High Springs and Waldo, Hawthorne Waldo, and other areas. We've also, one of the things that came out of the committee is that decided to do memorial quilts. And those quilts are very nice. They represent a memorial for the lynching victims. And so there's one quilt that's on display at the county building, but there are others will be around. Archer was the most recent subcommittee to be formed, and they've already done a memorial quilt that's gorgeous. And if you get a chance to see that, it is gorgeous. And so we just want to recognize that. We've also done high school essay contests, and EJI sponsored scholarships for young people who were winners of that scholarship. And we've done a couple of bus tours to Montgomery, but there will be more. So if you're interested in going on one of the bus tours, just kind of watch for that. And then one other thing we've done that's kind of innovative is a digital Black Heritage Trail. Basically putting that map online so that you can go online and then you can go around Alachua County and see sites of historical significance to the African American community. And it really is, it turned out really nice. We partnered with the University of Florida Department of Museum Studies. And so they've been working with us on that and got that trail up. And we'll be adding more and more information as we learn about more information about sites that have historical significance to our county. The era of racial terrorism has left a mark on this county as it has on other counties in this state and throughout the South. There was a study done a few years back, not long after I came back to Gainesville, back to Alachua County. It was a study that was commissioned by the Friendship 7. And the Friendship 7, I won't try to name them all, but University President Dr. Fauch and the mayor of the city of Gainesville, as well as the county manager, as well as the president of Santa Fe College and a number of folks and UF Health, Alachua County Schools, all part of that. The study was to look at inequities, if you will, between west side and east side, between our white population and our black population. And that study pointed out a number of inequities, particularly with education, with occupations, with jobs, with housing. Housing was a big one. Okay, so there was a number of things that they were able to point out. And so we know we have these inequities in our community. So the question is, where do we go from here? And we think it's about truth and reconciliation. We must continue the work of seeking the truth, doing the research, educating our community. It won't be easy. There seems to be a kind of a concentrated effort, if you will, by some conservative groups to stop the teaching of African American history in our public schools and not tell the true story, if you will, of the horrors that the African American community went through. We'll also face, of course, with the banning of books that document our history and accurately reflect the conditions that our black ancestors faced. ACCRP, in its work with EJI and other local historians, uncovered much of the truth. Now we have to focus more on reconciliation. And so we're starting to shift now, not giving up our work, our research on the truth, but also doing more work on reconciliation. What does that look like going into the future? We know that reconciliation means acknowledging and addressing the harm, if you will, ensued by human rights violations, by slavery, by segregation, by Jim Crow laws, by voter suppression, and by social and economic injustices. So reconciliation means accepting the truth and taking bold, innovative steps to do something about it, to right the wrong. We've started to look, and there are other cities in the country that are also looking at reconciliation, that have formed reconciliation commissions. We've seen Boston, Philadelphia, San Francisco, the state of California, and one of my favorite cities, Evanston, Illinois. And is doing a reparations type program where they're focused on housing and helping African American families obtain housing as a way of generating wealth, and so as a means of reconciliation. So some in our community may be resistant, but we've got to do what we got to do. We know that Alachua County is a special place. It's a special place. It's rich in its natural resources, rich in culture, rich in its diversity of people. So with Gainesville and other cities and towns in this area, with the University of Florida, Santa Fe College, with UF Health, and all of us, with our diversity of people here, I think that we can do it, but we've got to really concentrate and work toward making this place, making a better quality of life for everybody in Alachua County. Thank you so much.
Just going up. Okay, I need another introduction.
Come on up.
Nigeria. Okay.
Here he is, Stanley Richardson.
There's no music? Okay. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much, Doctors Gordon, for inviting me. Bonnie, you're not leaving, are you? Where do we go from here? I think on the program it says I have a bicentennial poem. It's not really a bicentennial poem, but it is a poem. But it's not a bicentennial poem. I will leave it up to you to figure out what it actually is. Where do we go from here? The lady who got up a minute ago to give me this book, this is Miss Bonnie Burgess, former mayor of the city of Alachua. And I want to say this while I have this. So once you give me a microphone, you have no idea what I'm going to say. So, all right. But you're going to have to get a whole posse to come take this mic from me right now. So when we talk about, when we form subcommittees, and when we start going out into the community to form subcommittees, we need to be intentional and do our due diligence to make sure the people on these subcommittees actually know the history about the place they're talking about. I'm here Miss Burgess is here. We come from the same village, raised up in the same church, come from a family of educators, FAMU, Bethune. A city of Alachua County integrated when I was in 1970. I think I was in the second grade. I'm not sure what grade you were in, Bonnie, but your father was the principal, I think at the time, right? In McDade. Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess, if you don't know, is a legend in itself. He's in the Hall of Fame. He was called him Choo Choo at FAMU. He's a running back. His son, Bonnie's brother, was one of my best friends growing up. So I say this a lot of times, and I'm also a board member here at the Matheson. And the reason I'm on the board member because Dr. Peggy McDonald used to come get tired of me talking about Alachua and McDade. Because what happens is I grew up in Alachua. I'm a country boy. Grew up in Alachua. My mom and dad, my dad's from Live Oak, born in 1919. Mom from Alachua, from the Bland community. Went to Ogden School. Right. Told me stories about how she walked to school and how these people spit on her and stuff, but how they had to go and get educated and went to Ogden School. That's the history I grew up with. And what I noticed growing up, whenever folks who want to tell stories about the history of education doing segregation tell a half story. My dad used to tell me, son, any job worth doing is worth doing well. So my ask of you, some of you may be in the room, I don't know, but if you're going to do a history of education, of segregation, and doing, tell the whole story, because when I'm in Gainesville, I hear this story about Aquin Jones. Okay, Aquin Jones. They tell a story about Aquin Jones having to go to Kirby Smith and couldn't go inside of he couldn't go inside of the actual meeting, so he had to stand on a box outside the window. But he was not by himself. Prof. McBain was there with him. So when they tell these stories, it's all Gainesville, Lincoln centered. Mm-hmm. And so I'm here to tell you, we in Alachua have the same reverence for Prof. McBain that you do over here in Gainesville. So if you're gonna tell the story, tell the entire story or don't tell it at all. That's what I'm saying about when you talk about, talking about education doing segregation before integration. So like I said, I was in the second grade when integration happened. I remember it just happened right abruptly. They just stopped school right in the middle of the school year. They didn't even let us finish. They just said, stop, whatever you're doing now, integrate. And I guess, I'm not sure what grade you were in, Bonnie. Where did you stayed in McBain? You stayed in McBain? Well, I went down to Alachua Elementary, right? A lot of the older students, because McBain was K to 12, parents taught there. She just gave me she was just handing me a book with some information about my mother, Richardson, who was the educator. Mom educated students from. She started the first Head Start in the city of Alachua. All right. I think she ended up her career as an administrator at Santa Fe College, but she touched the lives of students from Head Start all the way through college in every segment of education here in Alachua County. And if you don't know those stories, if you don't have people on your subcommittees and you interact with people who may have just come to Alachua within the last 20 years or so, who don't really know, and you end up, when you talk about historical landmarks in the city of Alachua, you only end up with what's on Wikipedia, what you can Google. You don't have the you don't know the hall or the bottom or Miss Molly's shop or stuff or Miss Maddie's shop. You don't, because you're not talking to the people who actually know that history. Mm-hmm. You're just talking to people who can Google something or know what's been out there in just regular everyday news. You don't really have the people who are actually indigenous, who are part of the real fabric of the community. So that's enough of that. But I'm from Alachua, and Bonnie is too. And Bonnie, I went down to this CVS in Alachua, and I met the I met the manager. And you go down there, and they got all these FAMU shirts inside the store, FAMU. So I asked the manager, I said, look, you don't understand. So this community is divided around two major universities in the black community, HBCUs, FAMU and Bethune. So if you're going to have FAMU, you got to have Bethune. So he's supposed to be ordering something for me because I'm going to go down there and I'm going to raise hell. See, I grew up, necessity is the mother of invention. And I'm not going to say this. There's probably a forum for it, and it has to do with integration. I think Zora Neale Hurston was the one who cried out about the racist nature of integration because it worked on the premise that a black child would do better in a white school but not a white child doing better in the black school. So doing segregation, we created everything that we needed in the black community, everything. We couldn't go to your school, we built university. We couldn't go to your grocery store, we built a grocery store. We couldn't go to your bank, we built a bank. We couldn't go to your dry cleaners, we built a dry cleaner. We couldn't go to your shoe shop, man, we built a shoe shop. Whatever we needed, we created. Because necessity is the mother of invention. And I think right now we're in a time where we're between a rock and some difficult times ahead, and we need to go back. When I was at McDade, and you were there too, and we had all these wonderful, beautiful communities that educated the whole entire child. And ever since then, we've been giving our children over to a system that I think that fails them. And this is not a way to condemn public schools or anything like that. But I do believe that right now, we've always taken advantage of whatever is out there. And they want to go start talking about charter schools, we need to take advantage of that also. And that's enough of that. So, there's supposed to be a poem, right?
All right.
Oh, if Patricia were here. I recently got back from Lagos. Dr. Gordon, I'm sorry. I reached out to every Nigerian I could find. People I even saw in the grocery store who had accents I thought, or I heard them mention their name. Are you from Nigeria? Because I'm getting ready to go there. And it was difficult for me to go. My family, people in my family, my kids were calling me about maybe getting kidnapped. All kind of crazy stuff. My daughter, my youngest daughter, she's at Meharry Medical College, one of the oldest black HBCU medical school in the country. She's there. This Nigerian gentleman who's studying dentistry lives across the hall from her. So they're all discussing my dad is going to Nigeria. He gets on the phone. Mr. Richardson, don't go. They kidnapped my uncle when they went back. So now I have to go through all of this stuff about going to Nigeria. So they're thinking I answered some email about a Nigerian prince inviting me to go. I'm not sure what they're thinking, how I got this trip, but it kind of fell out of the sky. It came open up and everything fell into place. And it was meant for me to go because everybody who knows me, who's very close to me, knows that I wanted to go to Africa. Always wanted to go to Africa. And while I was there, the people who brought me over, it was at a theater festival, International Theater Festival. And I'm at the U.S. consulate, the consul general's home there, and they have all these dignitaries there, and someone sitting probably approximately from me to you where I'm speaking, and he says, and I was telling the story about this is my first time in the continent of Africa, and the Nigerian man said to me, welcome home, and everything got very emotional after that. So took me a minute to regain my composure and everything, but it was a beautiful, wonderful experience, and I'm so happy and blessed that I got a chance. See, there it goes again, to do that. So, but while I was talking to my wife on the phone, because everybody was calling to make sure I was okay and everything, and it's a time difference, 6 hours? 6 hours. And so I was talking to my wife, Carol, and she said, oh, if Patricia were here. And so, me being poet laureate also has something to do with Dr. Patricia Hill-Nunn. And my first time, one of the first times I heard her speak was she gave a lecture here about the lynchings in Newberry, which is a story I grew up with all of my entire life. I have family in Jonesville, and my mother's niece married a Long who's a descendant of Boise Long. And so I always heard that story, and Boise Long was just such a, the name Boise Long, I used to hear that story and it just stayed with me, and I never, and they always, I never got the whole story. So the first time I got a chance to actually get the whole story was here. And Dr. Nunn was giving a lecture, and she had both families here and everything, and there was a gentleman, Sidney Dennis, who was here. We went to school together, played football together at Santa Fe, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And he was like, that was my dentist, that was my grandfather. And I never knew that. But when I was filling the application out to apply to be poet laureate for Alachua County, I almost didn't do it. I was just advocating for a poet laureate. I knew we needed one, but I didn't think it was going to be me. And I got encouraged to fill the application out because you know how you think it's going to go to some person with a PhD at UF or someone with an MFA or someone like that, not just a country boy like me who likes to write, who can't help but to write. So I called up Dr. Patricia Hill-Nunn and asked her to write me a letter of recommendation. And she did. And when I read it, I cried. I mean, I don't just cry all the time, but there are things that touch me deeply, and her letter is one. And every time I feel when the imposter syndrome may creep in or something like that, I take her letter out and I read it, and I consider it a document of immense power for me. And I read her words, and it encouraged me greatly. So this is the poem that I wrote, and like I said, you decide what it is or what it isn't. I don't even know if it has a title, so we'll just call it Where Do We Go From Here? And my country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing, of thee I sing, of thee I sing. I sing. Sing. Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring. Ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise. Rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound. 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 Loud. Loud as the rolling sea. We must not forget. We must remember to sing our songs. Teach our babies to sing our songs, our sacred songs. We happened upon it. A coincidence. A coincidence, if there really is such a thing, devoid of wonder. So, yes, we happened upon it. Late one evening around the hour of amber, out on Payne's Prairie. It had fallen from the sky. Mahogany, ebony, and afroed, blood-stained wings covered in muck. Just below the canebrake, unusual, the ground wet and soggy. Its neck was long, long as a djembe's throat. Its head shaped like a drum. Eyes uneven, offset eyes. One big brown, seemingly searching for something divine, the other hauntingly hazel, staring back at our 200 years, peering through the ages, beckoning us back towards history's horizon. Barely alive, it moves painstakingly towards us, awestruck and frozen. It speaks. It speaks a distant mother's tongue, unknown yet familiar. Its outstretched arms motions us closer, closer, closer. It reaches beneath a broken wing and gives us something golden, an egg. And it whispers. It whispers in the wind. The way back. The way back is the way forward. The way back. The way back is the way forward. Lift every voice and sing. The way back is the way forward. As it sinks beneath the surface, swallowed by the thirsty swamp, leaving us something sacred. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Smart and Mr. Richardson. Would there be any questions at this point? And oh, there are. So I guess we will keep the format and you can come to the mic. I'm going to remember this while you're coming. I'm wanting to remember to tell you that this presentation today in its entirety will be uploaded on Samuel Proctor YouTube channel, and that it will also be archived by UF. I guess the YouTube in about a week, I think they said, and it ought to be available there. And so, you have a question. Yes. You can go ahead.
A suggestive question, primarily for Mr. Smart. Don't worry too much. As you probably know, I used to work in the County Growth Management Department, and one of the things that we worked with was the Friendship 7 report, and had the charge from the County Commission and the County Manager to incorporate the results of that into the county's comprehensive plan, which I oversaw before I retired. We did that, and there's been subsequent work on that, I understand, after I retired, to build in more additional policy language. But so we did that to a great extent by incorporating the measures of inequities in the county and criteria that called for eliminating those. So one of the things that I found and my colleagues found in researching similar studies around the country and what has been done with them is that some of the most successful efforts, and I think Northwestern may be an example, and Evanston, to translate those studies into remedial actions comes from collaborative efforts between local governments and a university, we have one here, and other entities like private sector, chambers of commerce, community groups, into actions to follow up on those inequities and efforts to eliminate them. As I was listening, I heard you mention Evanston. So, for example, I found this, that Northwestern seeks applications for racial equity and community partnership grants. Led by Northwestern's Office of Neighborhood and Community Relations, the grants program has been funding ideas that combine university and community assets to solve problems in Evanston and Chicago neighborhoods since 2021. So, my question is, what efforts, I mean, history is very important, so is data. But certainly as planners, we like to use that as a basis for action. So what kind of efforts do you know of that the county is undertaking with potential partners like the university and others to come up with implementation strategies to eliminate those inequities?
Okay, thank you. And one more.
I have, it's more of an observation, but I want to talk about what Carl said in terms of truth and reconciliation, and he mentioned the 48 lynching victims and so forth, and then he also mentioned the removal of the old Joe statue, okay? Now, Gainesville is, I mean, I came to Gainesville in 1967, and it's such a vastly different community. I don't have any roots here, I'm a Midwesterner. Such a vastly different community. And that most of the people in the community now do not have family roots here. Or maybe, okay, their parents came here and they came here. It's a lot easier then to deal with getting rid of old Joe, because that's the Confederacy, that's the bad past, and I know the daughters of the Confederacy and so on. But a large share of the population, get rid of old Joe, and let's recognize Patricia Hilliard Nunn. That is relatively easy compared. Now, there's a lot of objection, and we have state laws trying to say, the old, get us back to the feeling that old Joe is fine because it's just history. Well, if you really know the history, it's why J.J. Finley was named J.J. Finley at a specific time. So that type of thing is relatively easy to deal with. The more difficult thing is I mean, we can deal with the truth, but the whole initiative, a lot of the people in Gainesville say, I don't need to be reconciled because I'm not from here, And so that whole issue of getting the importance of truth and reconciliation, dealing with the truth, as opposed to some of these more easy symbols to deal with. And so we could get rid of Kirby Smith as the building name. We can, and J.J. Finley's renamed appropriately, and so on. But I wanted just to raise that conundrum, perhaps? I don't know.
If America as a nation we wouldn't probably need some of these local or countywide or statewide initiatives, because one of the things that America may not ever just adequately, address its history and what America really is and what it is not.
I agree fully with that, and that's the deeper issue. I mean, the whole reaction against the 1619 project. Terrible, terrible, terrible. That's distorting our history, etc. So that, I think, in dealing with the people who don't have roots here, but they have can recognize we're dealing with reconciliation at a wider range of issues. It's a step removed in a way, but it's not, so.
Ms. Filer,
Thank you. Thank you.
you're up.
Well, I missed most of today, but what I've heard has been great. There's so much that needs to be done. We're dropping the bucket. It's great to make a drop in the bucket. It's a good thing that we have what we have. What I have to say to all of us, and especially to our young people, and I call Miss Bonnie, Mr. Richardson, my husband talked with their parents, so I have the right to do this. They need to write a book. And all of those people who went to those schools and those outline, not outline because we're all county, write a book. It's our story. I often say, I don't care who's in the pot writing. If it's not from us, it's not about us, it's not for us. You write your gut. White people write books from the studies they do on us, but that's not from our gut. So you have to write the book. What we're doing here today is settling a fact that we've all known is that the truth has to be told. We cannot reconcile anything we don't know about. And all of us that are Black Americans can talk about somebody in our family who was almost lynched, if not lynched. My dad was one of those almost lynched. But I have to tell that story. But we'll all have to story. This world that we live in, this regressing now instead of progressing, has got to be attacked by us that are willing to step out on faith. I have been involved in civil rights. I walked those streets. I've done all of that. It's so dismantling to my soul to see those things regressing. I refuse to allow them to do that if I have something. But then you have to refuse to allow us to keep on doing the things that we're doing as far as Professor Jones, who was my professor, and not the professor my husband taught. As I said, that's important history. I want you to do it. So my challenge is the next time we speak, you'll say, Ms. Fowler, I applied for a grant, humanities grant. I'm writing the history. Hey, Queen Mother has spoken.
Mr. Blunt.
Hello. I'm going to try to secure a promise from both of you, if you agree with this statement, that kidnapped Africans were violently stripped of the knowledge, history, power of self-determination on purpose to become the economic tools of someone else's developing society. In fact, it's the first time in history that slavery was a major component of an economy that rose to world prominence is here. So, and that's one of the reasons they call it the peculiar institution, one of several reasons. So I believe that since our history was taken away, that we must take it back. We cannot hope for somebody else to drop it on us or wait for public systems to do it for us. And so I'm seeking sponsorship now to buy a gross of copies of a particular book and start some reading circles in the community. So if you agree with with this statement I just said, I want to ask both of you for your promise to attend my reading circles.
Only if you include my book.
Well, that's not the first book, but it can join the list. Okay.
Yeah, you gonna put it on the list?
Mm-hmm.
You gave me the mic? You want me to do another poem? No, you need to take this mic from me, though.
I'll start it off then, unless you want to hear from Mr. Carter.
Yeah. I thought y'all said, where do we go from here? I think that was the title. And one of the things that Black folks do not do, they do not exercise all of their voter rights. And one of those things is citizens initiative. There's 26 states in the United States where Black folks can do citizens initiatives. those issues that was on the ballot this election cycle, like abortion, the cannabis issues, all of those was done with citizens' initiative. If we really want to get something done, nationwide, Alachua County, statewide, we need to use all our voters' tools in our toolbox. Next thing that I think need to be done. I like what you said about Evanston, Illinois. Evanston, Illinois got reparations for its citizens, and this is how they did it. First, they passed marijuana laws. Then they said, let's use the tax money for reparation. The reason why marijuana laws did not pass on the state referendum is they got it fixed so that they don't want it passed. Most states is 51%. In our state, it's 60%. The other issue that black folks need to learn how to do, they need to learn how to pool their resources and solve some of their own economic problems. Surely we're entitled for something from the state. Surely we're entitled to something from the federal government, because we are taxpayers and we are entitled to get something on return. But we cannot sit on our hands and knees and just wait for it to come. We need to pool our resources, solve our own problems. There is over, 40 million black people in this country? We should have a Black Wall Street in every state. But because we have not learned how to pool our resources, we have other people come into our neighborhood, take our commerce out, and ship it to other countries. We must learn how to pool our resources. The other thing, and probably half of y'all gonna disagree with this last one, we need to learn this. We need to have people in both political parties working together in order to solve the problem. Because we put all our eggs in one basket. We got Republicans over there, and we don't have no leverage over there to get anything done. But I do say this to you. The person who is elected to political office, he has something called the Platinum Plan. Read the Platinum Plan and make him do it. Thank you.
Do either of you have any comments, additional comments that you have to make before I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Gordon? Yep. Okay.
Just a couple of comments. One is I agree with colleague Blunt, Mr. colleague Blunt, with the kidnapped and stripped. Obviously, we didn't come here voluntarily. We didn't come on the Nina, the Pinta, or the Santa Maria. We came in the bellies of slave ships. And so we were kidnapped and we were stripped. Our ancestors kidnapped and stripped of their language, of their culture. But somehow our ancestors were able to hold on and make it through. And that's where I think there is strength. There is strength in the faith that the African American community has. I can agree with Mr. Carter when he says we need to pool resources. Absolutely, that's how many things are accomplished. You can't do it by yourself. Pulling resources together and doing things together, we can, and working across the aisle, as they say, work across the aisle, work across party lines, we're able to get a lot of things done. Again, I think Alachua County is is a place where it can happen. Evanston, Illinois is not so much different than Alachua County with this university there. I'm kind of partial to it, I can tell you. Pardon?
Public university too.
Yeah, absolutely, and we have one of the greatest colleges too. Here we're just fortunate. My son went to school, did his grad school work in Evanston, and so I said a lot of my money went to Evanston, Illinois. But he studied right here. He went to Williams Elementary and Fort Clark Middle School, and then went to University of Florida for his undergrad, and then to Evanston for his graduate work. And now he's on the staff at MIT. So we're very proud of him. But Evanston, what they did was put the money where their mouth was and say, okay, we're gonna provide monies to help people get equity by helping them to purchase homes. A lot of people who were driven out through efforts, people buying up the property tax dollars, tax rates going up, and driven out of the city, couldn't afford to stay in the city. They're coming back because Evanston is providing funds that will help them to purchase homes. I think it's around $25,000 per family that they can get that money and use it. So there are other efforts, reconciliation, and yes, we need to take action steps to get things going. And Alachua County had, you brought up a good point about the comprehensive plan. Alachua County is putting equity, has put equity in the comprehensive plan. You want to keep an eye on that because the comprehensive plan drives development in this county, and so you want to keep a close eye on that. How is development? How is it determined? How is it approved? How are conditions imposed? And so equity is a very important factor there. The county has created an office, equity manager, equity and community outreach manager. They've also created an equity advisory board that citizens can serve on to provide helpful recommendations as it relates to equity and reconciliation. So just
one thing, if I can mention.
This is just for the
Priority identified that Friendship Second study had to do with educational inequities. School board needs to be involved in those efforts on a collaborative basis. And you would think that the university has resources to bring to that too.
And Senator Collins. So you're absolutely right. I agree.
This is just an observation about the reparations that was passed. The gentleman mentioned that they passed the marijuana legislation first. Yeah. Was there a reason? Did that have anything to do with the reparations?
Yes, a lot of the funds for the reparations are coming from taxes that were placed on the sale of cannabis. Okay. And so there was some thought that you could do that here in the state of Florida if the cannabis law had passed. Then looking at how to fund reparations, fund reconciliation efforts through the.
So it's more about the taxes, not the THC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, let's see whether we get more people engaged in what we have for the future. Where do we go from here? Are there any more comments? Where do we go from here? What's your input? Hearing no one, I want to thank all of you for being here. You will enjoy some music from 1824 to the present. We have it for you to enjoy, and I'm hoping that the food is already here so we can have some food while you're enjoying the music. I want to thank all our sponsors, especially the Alachua County and the Madison Museum. And for those of you who have traveled quite a long way to come down here, this is good. This is just the beginning. Our job, we're going to try to encourage local history. I've traveled to most of the counties, if not all of them, all the cities in the county, Mikonopi, the rest of them. And it needs to be done. We have to do it. We can't wait for someone to do it. They will do it from their perspectives. So I'm hoping you take this to wherever you've come from in the county and see how you can help us to promote the study of African American life and history. Thank you so much for helping us to celebrate the 200th anniversary of Alachua County. We hope you join us to celebrate the 250 years of the United States of America. Thank you.